In an effort to juice a dried lemon, the NBA All-Star Game changes format. The Olympics are hurting for American goals, restraint in press conferences, and condoms. We'll explain. College football wants its own March Madness. Let's just call it January gluttony. It's getting ridiculous. And we lost a legendary sports writer with the passing of the great Max Mercy. It's angry old guys talking sports and stuff. It's this week's version of Obstructed View. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the show. I'm Jim Watson. This is the show that's high on opinion, light on research. If you've stumbled across us over the last 5 weeks, we had the great USC offensive lineman Mike Lamb with us, but he was just too distraught this week over all the drama around Olympic curling. He said he needed some time to himself. So we went deep in the bullpen. We brought up another oldster whose judgment is questionable. Ladies and gentlemen, maybe you know him from the B he gave you or the A you were upgraded to after drinking with him after class. It's the professor. It's Pete Weitzner. Hello, Peter. Welcome to Obstructed Viewers. We like to call it the Witness Protection Program.
Well, hello, Jim. Congratulations to you and Tommy for launching Obstructed View. I know me, Tommy, and about 1 million of your friends and colleagues have told you over the decades, this is the role you were born to play. Thank you for the invite.
You mean with no network that can fire me this time? Yeah, I can say whatever I want. Yeah, and
That's
speaking of Tommy Catlin,
keep in the bullpen.
Our award-winning reporter and producer, and he's our technical director on this show. He's so good, he couldn't even get a picture of himself this week, but we do have his audio. Tom, how are you doing in your ice dancing fantasy league? Are you still leading that?
Some weeks my camera's frozen. Some weeks it's just not there at all. I'm just the laugh track in the background, the Ed McMahon.
So, Peter, just so to get you up to speed, in 5 weeks we've already alienated vegans and women, and now I think I've scuttled the show completely because I realized about 10 minutes before we started that I've now stocked our roster with 2 Mets fans.
Ooh.
Obviously know nothing about sports.
But I understand you're now in line to be the next Marlboro man, so it's all good. Even
Oh, wouldn't that be great? Wouldn't that be great?
Are we looking dick in this?
You guys are the last. You guys are the last 2 Mets fans, I think, in the northern hemisphere, as AOC calls it, below the equator. I believe. Is that accurate?
Dick Hammer loves the Mets. He's a Mets fan.
You know what? It doesn't take long for Dick Hammer to get into the show.
I was going to wear my Piazza jersey next time.
Oh, I can't believe that guy's in the Hall of Fame. I was in Cooperstown this last summer. I'm walking through. I look up at the plaques. Mike Piazza made the Hall of Fame. All right.
As a Met.
So, Pete, we start every show, as you might remember. I think you've seen one of these so far. We always start with a disclaimer. And the reason I have to do this is because my wife, who's in the sweet spot of her career, said, if you ruin things for me with the home office, I'm going to kill you. So you need to make sure that everybody knows I have nothing to do with this. In fact, when I do this, she leaves the house, Pete. So if there's geofencing, you can prove that she was outside, had nothing to do. She's not sitting here telling me what to say. All right, Tommy, let's do the disclaimer. The views expressed by the host on this podcast are mine alone and don't reflect the views or beliefs of my wife and children, who are decent and honorable people, also suffer my existence. Signed, Waddy's wife. And Pete, every week, Tommy brings up another icon from the past to represent my wife. And that's, her name was Dawn Wells, I believe, right on Gilligan's Island. Is that right?
The age-old question, Ginger or Marianne?
Marianne.
I only watched every episode like 11 times. You know what's funny? When I was on an NBC tour one time. Oh, wait, I was giving it because I used to do tours at NBC. And I remember we were talking about Gilligan's Island, and I think it's Gilligan's Island. It was one of the long-running shows of that era. When you go back and look at it, I think it was only on the air for like 3 years. And yet it filled my childhood because of the reruns. I'll have to check myself and see if it was Gilligan's Island. But when I remember seeing it, I thought, that's all they shot that for? I think they did, 50 episodes a year and got it done, and then it went into syndication, and that's why we've seen them over and over and over. So, I don't know, I've always been surprised by that. Here,
Parts of the Open, I think, shot in Newport Beach.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, the between Corona del Mar and Newport Beach, the
Yeah.
inlet going out to the Pacific Ocean. That's right. Pete, let's get started with it. I know you've been dying to talk about the NBA because you're such a huge fan. The reason I brought this up for you is because, and we don't talk about X's and O's very much on this show. The reason I brought it up is they changed their format. First off, they held it in exotic Inglewood in the new Intuit Dome. I've not been there. And the format was USA versus the world. So, looking in from the outside, I thought, all right, it makes sense to me since 4 of the top 5 players in the world right now hail from outside the United States. I don't know if you watched it. What do you think of the idea? I do tip my hat that at least they're trying to keep it fresh and find something that strikes a chord with the public. What'd you think? What was your reaction?
Well, first of all, full disclosure, while it was going on, I was watching the Olympic women's ski jumping on tape delay. But my research team in preparation for this, look, and I hate to pass up any opportunity to flog the NBA, but this, at least on Sunday, Friday and Saturday, apparently with the newcomers game and slam dunk, all that, it was a ghost town in there. But at least on this Sunday, with the prodding of a couple of rare NBA guys that I actually like. Anthony Edwards seems to, for a young guy, seems to make, he and Wembayama, I guess, threw down the gauntlet to their colleagues and said, let's play hard. And this format of USA versus the world, we still all harbor someone's toying with the idea of whites versus blacks in coming years, which they won't do for obvious reasons. But I remember when Kiki Vandeweghe came over to the Knicks 30, 40 years ago, they didn't pass him the ball. So there is strong feeling still, right, between non-American players and they played hard. The game, by all accounts, the round robin was competitive. So I give them props for this. The last thing I'll say is, yeah, the All-Star game for the NBA has been challenged, but have you seen the NFL's All-Pro game? We've fallen a long way. Remember what they used to do, Jim? I think it was 40, 50 years ago. The NFL All-Pros would play the college All-Pros. It was an interesting game.
Yes.
Have you watched the Major League Baseball All-Star game? They're the worst. The only interesting thing is the home run contest. So NBA got the game part right.
I remember the old days when the college All-Stars would play. I guess it was the NFL, the Super Bowl champions from the year before, right, in that first game. And it was fun because they were all fired up and playing on an NFL field. And the Oldsters who won the Super Bowl, they had nothing to gain from that. They weren't in shape. They're playing the college All-Stars. I remember it was always at Soldier Field. Was it always at Soldier Field, or is that just my memory?
I remember it being in Soldier Field. And I was watching. Have you seen this? There's a really good documentary on the ABA. It just came out. I'll say it's Amazon. And, the ABA in its last year was down to 7 teams. They played each other like 15 times. But they had an All-Star game. We've all seen the footage. It's the one where Dr. J took off from the foul line. It was him against Skywalker, David Thompson. But the competitiveness, you could see it as they showed this at All-Star game. And here's a folding league, different era.
I loved
Pete,
the NBA.
Growing up in Southern California, I was a huge ABA fan because the Lakers were in LA, and that was a different planet for me. The Clippers, I don't even think they'd started in San Diego yet. So I used to watch the Anaheim Amigos over at the Anaheim Convention Center. And my dad would take us those. He hated pro sports, but that one was kind of a rival league, so he was okay getting cheap tickets to that one when somebody give them. And I remember going and seeing Maravich play. He was playing, I think, for the Utah Stars. And that was amazing to me. And that arena, it's funny, that arena seems so big. If you don't know the Anaheim Convention Center, it's right across the street from Disneyland, right on Catella. And it holds 3,500 people.
I was there for many years.
And when I was a kid, it seemed like a cavernous arena. And when I got to high school in Orange County, I was the point guard, and we got to play. I went to Foothill, and we were playing Catella, and we got to play in a tournament. And I remember getting the ball and coming up court, and it was the biggest arena I'd ever been in. And I looked up on the scoreboard, and for the two teams, 0-0, but underneath it said Knights, because we were both the Foothill Knights and the Catella Knights. And I remember kept thinking, well, that's confusing. I guess you'd have to know if you were ahead later on in the game. It didn't seem to be a problem. But
I'll take the Knights and give you my gambling history. I lose. Oh, it's great.
The
Look,
ABA was,
three-pointer.
yeah,
They gave the NBA
red, white, blue
everything.
ball.
All of it, drafting underclassmen. Yeah, brought back the dunk. I think well, it was illegal in college then, but
I
everyone
still
went
want the
Moses
red, white,
Malone.
and blue ball.
Yeah, the
First
red, white,
year
and blue ball. I
adopted.
thought when they combined, I thought that was, they kept the 3-pointer. And it's funny, if you talk to a 25-year-old and try to tell him that there used to be an NBA without a 3-point line, Pete, they look at you like you're from Mars. You know, they like, what are you talking about? It's always been there. Now, and when I was in high school, there was no 3-point line. So I lived it, I played it.
Had there been in college, Pete Maravich would be first on every single list of greatest players of all time. He averaged almost 50 points.
Yeah, he averaged what, 44 points a game, playing for his dad Press at LSU.
Yeah,
he would have been averaging 60 points a game in those days. You know, I mean, I always tell young guys, I say, listen, you know who he was? He was Steph Curry with an even better handle and more creative. And Steph Curry's fantastic. So, yeah. Hey, by the way, if you did the NBA All-Star game on the black-white format, what team is Steph Curry going to play on? See, isn't he?
Gotcha.
Those are the problems we'll incur.
Play half and half? Is it what he? I don't know. I think you know that's never getting past the censors. They're never doing that.
We'll pull an Eileen Gu, whoever plays more.
And I got to tell you, I think I left the NBA along with Steve Nash in like 2015. That's just where, you know, I had gotten married. I had little kids at home. I didn't have the time. The NBA season, regular season, is pretty boring. I would check in during the playoffs. And just over the years, it's just kind of, you know, faded away for me. I didn't make any conscious decision. It's not the game I grew up with. I think that one of the things that bothers me the most is that players don't stay with a team anymore. You know, when I was a kid, I was a Laker fan, and I knew it was going to be West, Goodrich, you know, Happy Harrison, Wilt Chamberlain, and Elgin Baylor. I knew that 4 months before the season started. Now, guys are getting traded every 2 years. I remember when my nephews, who are now in their 30s, they told me they were watching the NBA, and I said, well, you know, who are you fans of? And they said, Shaq. And I said, no, what team? And they said, well, whatever team Shaq's on. And that's where there was a break generationally when you went from rooting for a team. You know, if you were a Celtics guy and somebody left, you hated him and you stayed with your Celtics, right? And my nephews, they would just jump team to team with, you know, whoever. Shaq's with Orlando, he's with the Lakers. They just bounced around because that's when it became a personality-driven league. And I know it's worked and it's wildly successful. It's not NFL level, but, you know, for me, changing the format of the All-Star game is like rearranging the deck chairs on Epstein Island. I wasn't going anyway, so it really doesn't affect me.
You're just mad that you're not named.
Yeah, Jim, it's a success. I guess the ratings are up somewhat now. They brought in Netflix. They're back on, for what this means, broadcast TV. They're back with NBC. They get billions from China. So yeah, financially, as a business, it's successful. But boy, the game today, they just line the 3-point line, right? There's you mentioned the rivalry, Celtics, Sixers, Knicks, Lakers, Celtics. I mean, they legitimately didn't like each other, and they had more likable superstars, right? I mean, I'm not saying Jordan, Magic, Bird were never Saints, Pete, but the public persona,
likable and hateable. Like, it was fun to hate the Pistons, right? And marvel at Rodman getting rebounds in Chicago, even though you thought he was just a freak and you didn't want to deal with him. But to me, those guys, you know, they were authentic. Now it seems like everybody's just kind of muddled together and is worried about their brand, and they control it with their own Twitter and Instagram. And, you know, when we were growing up, the only way you'd hear these guys is on post-game interviews, or if you were lucky enough to go to a game. So they were kind of exotic personalities. And now you get all of one of these guys that you want, but there's also no media filter. So when a guy tells you something, you believe it, but it hasn't been put up to the light. You know, it might not be true. These guys, you know, they can jump their own PR team on, you know, for the franchise they're playing for, and change the narrative before it even gets out there. I mean, a lot of these guys are demanding trades, and the team doesn't even know it.
You look, I am pretty sure to this day, Michael Jordan and Isaiah Thomas are not breaking bread. And that's great. I mean, because we'll go on forever. Did Jordan keep him off the Olympic team? Just like you say, that was authentic hatred.
You know, a long time ago when I had my first daughter, Pete, I was living in Santa Monica, and I needed a nanny. And so I told my wife, I'll handle this. I'll hire the nanny. And she said, no, I'll handle the nanny. And so I come home one day and she goes, hey, we have a new nanny trying out today. Why don't you go say hi? So I go up and I meet this woman, and she's tall. She's taller than I am, very athletic. And we start chatting. She's very personal. I really liked her. We're talking up, and she said, oh, you're a sportscaster. And I said, yeah, I work for Fox, so I guess it's a loose definition, but sure, we'll say that. And then she says, oh, I was in sports too. Oh, what'd you do? I played college basketball. Really? Anywhere I might have heard? Syracuse. You played at Syracuse? I said, were you any good? She goes, yeah, I made all Big East. Really? What's your last name? Lane Beer. It was Bill Lane Beer's daughter. And at the time, I was calling the Sparks in the WNBA. Lane Beer was coaching the New York Liberty. So when we went to Manhattan to call games at the Garden, one of the great thrills of my life, of course, I go down to Lane Beer and talk to him about his daughter nannying my young daughter at home back in Santa Monica. So there's a little crossover, and I was talking to Lane Beer, and he's exactly the same guy as he was when he was a player. Lane Beer, by the way, Pete, has a great line, one of the greatest lines in sports history. Lane Beer's father, I believe, was a captain, a 747 captain for American Airlines. And when he got signed, he got out of college, came out of Notre Dame. He got like a $200,000 signing bonus. They said, you know, how does it feel to be in the NBA? You know, all this money. And he said, well, I'm pretty sure I'm still the only guy in the NBA who makes less than his father. And it tells you how far back ago that was, right? Because his dad was probably making, you know, $500,000 as a heavy captain for American Airlines. There was two things about this game I wanted to ask you about, Pete. Go ahead.
Can I just say real quick, that was a good sign off by your wife on Lambert's daughter, because I know your preference was a Dutch speed skater.
Yeah, you do know that. You know why? Because it's the same as every guy in America. My goodness, they're a talented young bunch, aren't they? Yeah,
I know you haven't been watching, but I'm sure you've seen the Dutch speed skaters.
Yeah, so I did some speed skating for NBC back in the day for a couple of years. I got to do that, and I was, you know, like most Americans, I was unaware of what speed skating is. And in the Netherlands, it is a national sport. It is big, 10,000 people in arenas. They sing and dance like they're at a soccer game. These guys are national heroes. Johan Klaas, you know, was the boss, and everybody knew his name. And when I went there and did it, I was shocked at the passion and the energy behind it. But then I went to interview the Dutch women at a workout, and they said, which one do you want to interview? And I said, all of them. You know, it's like, it was amazing.
Brings us to the condom shortage story, but that's down the
it's
run.
coming.
That story,
so to speak.
Hey, let me wrap up the NBA talk with two things, then we'll get to the Winter Olympics. Was I the only one in America who noticed that in the All-Star game, and I think they had three teams because they were doing a round robin thing,
right? Younger
stars and
NBA,
stripes and all that.
Yeah.
There was only, Pete, one American-born white player in the game, and it was Chet Holmgren. Now, why is that not a big story? I'll tell you why. Because people like you and me and Tommy and everybody else watching, we don't care. It's a meritocracy. We want the best players on the court. And years ago, we stopped noticing color on the court. So I didn't even realize that until I was looking at the roster and seeing the European names and players I recognized. And then I saw Chet Holmgren, and I'm like, why is he on the team? You know, and I saw Holmgren play in college, and you knew he'd be a pretty good NBA player. And I thought, oh, I wonder if this was a token that they threw him in there. But I'm the only one who noticed it. I haven't seen any articles on it. Yeah, yeah, exactly. I don't have any problem with it. I'm just pointing it out. because I don't have a problem with it, you don't have a problem with it, nobody in America has a problem with it. You know, the media wouldn't touch it anyway, but nobody said anything about it. And I thought, wow, I think that's a testament to where we are now. Nobody cares because the NBA is a pure meritocracy. Best players play, no DEI hires, no nepotism. You got to be able to, well, there's a little nepotism in LA, but we'll get to that in a second too.
No one should care. By the way, there were 3 whites besides Leitner on the Dream Team. Let me see: Stockton, Mullen, Larry Bird. Who cares?
Bird, yeah.
And all 3 of
Bird had to be right.
Hall of Fame.
All right, so there was another thing, speaking of nepotism in the NBA, Ron Harper, the old Chicago Bulls star who I think he won 3 NBA titles or something, and he's just an old school OG.
Great defender.
I mean, he still looks like he can play. He's still tough. He's got 2 sons that play in the NBA, and they can play because they can really play. They're really good. They didn't get a job because their name is Harper. They might have got a tryout because their name is Harper, but they can both play. So they're doing a press conference.
Or Rutgers.
Yeah, and Daddy's sitting behind him at the press conference, and somebody talks about, how proud he is being a dad with 2 sons in the NBA. And then they said, just like LeBron James. And Ron Harper had a comment. Tommy, if you have that shot, you can roll the Ron Harper
Was
shot.
this a vision you had?
I'm not LeBron James. I'm not going to tell my kids what they have to do. I just want them to play and enjoy the game.
So,
look
at his son's reaction.
Game, we will take it. Once upon a time, I told him whatever opportunity that you have, you should have a chance to play in the NBA.
Yeah, perfect. And Tommy, you already picked up on it. Tom Catlin, our producer off camera, said right away, look at his sons. And they put their hands, in their face. They're like, oh my goodness, I can't believe you said it out loud, because obviously we got to see that was truth right there. That was a truth bomb that Ron Harper dropped. Pete, I had a huge problem with Bronny James getting into the NBA. I knew him in high school at Sarah. I didn't know him personally. I just knew, I watched games at Sarah. I was still working for Fox in those days. And then I saw him at SC. And you could tell in those days that he just wasn't great. He was a really good, heck, Sarah was one of the best teams in California, but he wasn't the best player on his high school team. Then he went to USC and averaged 2 or 3 points a game. He had the medical problem, which kind of scuttled his whole freshman year. Then it was all set up. And I was talking to some friends of mine in media in LA, and we came up with it pretty quickly. We knew he was going to get drafted 55th because that was a Lakers pick. That was their 3rd pick. And usually the 3rd guy doesn't make the team anyway. You put him down, in the D League or the G League or whatever they're calling it now. And it was just going to be a favor to LeBron because he'd been mouthing off for 20 years. And LeBron kept saying, oh, my dream is to one day play in the NBA with my sons. So I'm sure Jeannie Buss felt an obligation, keep LeBron happy, maybe make it happen. And they throw a flyer at 55th because maybe the kid develops and you can get him on the court and nobody's going to question it. But, complete nepotism to get Bronny. And I know he's been coming up and down. But even if he one day makes it and he's good enough to legitimately be on the NBA court, whose spot did he take, Pete? Because that guy's now driving for Amazon.
Well, Harper touched the 3rd rail in the NBA, right? You never say anything bad about LeBron. And not just because it's LeBron, it's Clutch Sports, right? By the way, he's already backtracked, Harper.
Of course. Yeah, of course. You're right. I forgot about the Clutch Sports thing because they got everybody. So, yeah, LeBron's on his way out. The Lakers are even trying to distance themselves a little bit. He wasn't voted a starter in the All-Star game for the first time ever. All of that. But you're right. They have all those other guys. And so if you make Clutch Sports angry, yeah. All right, last thing with the NBA All-Star game, and then we'll let you go. Brandy, the icon, the Grammy winner, great artist, great singer, was asked to sing the national anthem. And like a lot of people, she had her own rendition. Tommy, roll some of that.
Say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight last gleaming.
All right, so when I saw this, Pete, I wanted to hate it, and I didn't. I didn't hate it. I thought it was fine, but I'm a traditionalist. You know, I want you to sing the song the way it was written. It depends. You know, I saw Jimi Hendrix do it. Well, I didn't see it, but I've seen it on YouTube. Jimi Hendrix doing it. Everybody's done it their own way. Whitney Houston at the Super Bowl. Everybody's got their own little spin on it. Obviously, the players, I think they felt it. They liked it. It was representative of the whole NBA community and all that. But you know, for me, I like it traditional. But I have to admit, I didn't hate it. I thought it was interesting. I thought, well, they're fantastic singers, and I actually thought it was respectful. I didn't think it was disrespectful. We used to say when I was working in the business, Pete, 40 years of hearing the national anthem, and I almost have the words down. One thing that we would always say, because we would always, you know, we used to, when I was a kid, you used to see the national anthem for the game. Now airtime's too valuable. So we go to break, right? We do our on-camera open, and then we throw to break, and they cue the singer, and the anthem runs while we're at break, and then you come back right as the crowd's applauding, and then we starting lineups, and off we go, because you can't waste that amount of time. But there's a window there. We know it's 2 minutes and 12 seconds, but sometimes they go too long, or the mic doesn't work, or the music has to be recued, and people hold the last note and they pause in the middle and mention something. And we always used to say, hey, it's an anthem, not an audition. Just sing the song, because we were on the clock. But I've always liked the traditional ones, and I don't know, this one I didn't dislike it. It was fine.
My only knock is that I had the under at 2 minutes. Look, it's Sunday. It's Sunday. She took us to church.
Charlie,
I'm
yeah,
with
that's
you.
a good point.
I'm with whether you like the R&B or black church sound. She nailed it. She didn't pull an Ingrid Andress. Yeah. She didn't pull a Carl Lewis or a Roseanne Barr. She nailed it. It comes down to whether you like the style. It was fine. It was fine.
By the way, how did the Carl Lewis thing happen? Did nobody ask him for a tape? Did no one ask him in the office, hey, can you sing a few bars? What, you just assume the fastest man in the world can sing? It's like when I get invited to play in a celebrity golf tournament, everybody goes, oh, you're a sportscaster. You must be a great golfer. I never understood the math on that. Why, if I can yell into a stick a bunch of cliches strung together, why does that mean I can hit a 5-iron out of the heavy stuff? I never understood that. I felt like I was always disappointing people. I used to play in this tournament, Pete, at Riviera. It was the Fox tournament. And each hole was sponsored by a different team or a different sponsor. And then we would bring in LA Kings. There'd be some Lakers. Not many would play. Soccer guys. Some of the football players would come in. You know, a lot of guys live in LA, so we would get a pretty good roster. So the fans could play in the tournament, and you had to pay $500 or something to get in a fivesome. So it was 4 guys and then a celebrity. And I roll up one day, you know, and it's a shotgun, so you start on different holes. So I get there. They have my cart for me, and I drive it. They're, okay, your group is out on number 16. They're waiting for you. So I roll up on my group. There's 4 guys standing there very anxious to see which celebrity they got paired up with. And here I come rolling up. And at that time, I'm doing high school football, women's college basketball, and maybe I'd done one Olympics, but maybe not. And I roll up, and I get out of the cart, and the guy says, hey, any idea who our celebrity is? Because he's not here yet. And I said, well, I have good news and I have bad news. The good news is your celebrity's here. And the bad news is your celebrity's here. And you've never seen 4 guys ask for their money back faster than that. Like, you got to be kidding me. You know, those guys are playing with CP3 over there, and we got you. What's your name? They didn't know my. But here's how I saved it. The very first hole, we leave ourselves playing a shotgun. So it's a scramble, so everybody shares the one ball. We're 40 feet from the cup. And the first 4 guys go, and they're not close. They're banging it 10 feet past. We don't even have a kick in, you know, to save par. And I drained the 40-foot putt. And this big guy comes running over in my group who had just been bad-mouthing me for the last 15 minutes, runs over and hugs me. He says, I don't even know your name, but I don't care anymore, because if you can putt like that, you can stay with us all 18. So it was terrific. All
Hey,
right,
they're
let's
at
move on.
Riviera. Yeah, they're at Riviera this weekend, Jim. I only mentioned that because your favorite athlete, Tiger Woods, is the host.
Also known as Eldrick. Yeah.
Cyprus native.
Yes, he is. Anaheim. Let's see. Yeah, he went to Western High School, home of the Fighting Pioneers. Yeah,
Yes.
and yeah, we knew him in high school. We covered him in our little station. The three of us worked
did?
at the Orange County News Channel, and we covered him. And I will say that when Tiger was in high school, he was a pretty good kid. He was a dork. He was Urkel, with the glasses. Obviously a great golfer. He was actually a pretty nice kid. Tried to be as normal as he could in that fishbowl that he lived in. I actually liked him, and I felt bad for him. His dad, of course, was the stage dad. He was the Marv Marinovich of golf and pushing his kid. And then when Tiger played Riviera, I think as a 16-year-old, and Dave Feldman and I went up there to do this. It was a little harder to get to. All of a sudden, the fences started to be put in place, and we had been there at the very beginning, so we would still get time with him. But you could feel the distance, and it was Daddy that was starting to push us into the background, like he's graduating. But I haven't talked to Tiger in 25 years. But he was a pretty good dude back in the day. I don't like what he did to his family, but that's me.
If you watch the HBO documentary, he was a very good dude, and they show him in his high school years. He had a girlfriend of a number of years, broke up with her because his parents made him break up with her,
Yeah.
focus on golf. So, yeah.
I will tell you, you know what? I had a conversation with Tiger when he was at Stanford. So I was doing a show called Running with the Pack, and we would interview athletes in the Pac-12 conference on campus every week. We'd host it from a different place, just a magazine show. And so I was talking to Tiger. I think it had to be his freshman year at Stanford. And there was all this talk of him turning pro. And I said, listen, dude, I've known you since you were 12 or 13 years old. Again, not friends, just a guy that I covered. And I said, college is the best time of your life, and you're still a young guy. And if you go out on that tour, those are all older guys, and they're drinking, and there's courtesy cars and sponsors and crazy fans. And I'm like, you need to grow up, you need to mature, and frankly, your game isn't there yet. You're just not ready. And he looked at me and he said, oh, thanks. I appreciate your opinion. And then he turned pro about 72 hours later, and he went to Vegas and won his first tournament. And all my producers like, maybe we keep that soundbite out of the interview where you look like an ass. I said, yeah. And there's just no room for it anyway. So yeah, that was nice.
You were prescient, Jim. You were prescient
nice
because the downfall 12 years.
And I spent 9 years in college. I was in no hurry to go anywhere. All right, let's move on to the Winter Olympics. I don't know if you know this, Peter. They're out of condoms in the Olympic Village. Now, I don't know if that means people are having a lot of sex, or maybe the U.S. coaches just decided to crossbreed with the Danes and the Swiss and the Dutch so that we could win a gold medal at some point. How do you run out of condoms?
This just in, they got a delivery. 10,000.
10,000 in 3 days. That's Chamberlain-esque.
All I know is, regardless of what she looks like, Eileen Gu is not the cause.
Ooh.
You had to get an Eileen Gu dig in there, didn't you?
Has there ever?
Yeah.
She's beyond a narcissist. She's a megalomaniac.
Yeah. I was just reading an article about her this morning, and they were trying to make her a hero in both countries. Anybody who doesn't know who she
Cover of
is,
Time magazine. It's shameful.
Is Time magazine still a thing, Pete?
It's 3 readers.
Yeah. Anyway, she born and raised in the United States. Her mother was born in China. She was with the U.S. ski and snowboard team until she was 15, and then she got the money or a calling or a conscience or whatever, and decided to go compete for China. And she's going to Stanford. She's born and raised, lives in the United States in San Francisco. So whatever, she made her decision. I'll always remember it. Speaking of rolling gold, Peter, there was one part of the Olympics, and I did 4 Olympics, so I've been around this and grew up watching it, love the Olympic Games. I was really impressed with the American skater, Ilia Malinin, if I'm saying his name correctly, Ilia Malinin.
Yes.
He was in the men's competition. He's leading after the short program. by 5 points. Pretty good lead, like a 20-point lead in basketball. And he's the best skater in the world champion. All he's got to do is go in and do his thing. Calls himself the quad god. He's very photogenic with the floppy blonde hair. He's, there's a coronation. NBC's just all excited about, making this guy the new cover boy. They got Snoop Dogg ready to go and the whole deal. And then he comes apart in his long program. He falls twice. He doesn't do all of his biggest tricks. He dilutes the whole program. He collapses and ends up 8th. That isn't even the story. The story is he's a 21-year-old guy, expected to win the gold, had the advantage, had the lead, had it in his hands, collapses on the biggest stage. He'll never live it down. And what does he do? He walks off the ice. He waits for his score. And then he goes 10 steps and does a live interview with NBC. When he finishes with that, and this is the way it works at the Olympic Games, live TV, American TV, NBC gets the first live interview. After that, they release you into what is called the mix zone. And you walk along and they have little corrals for the media. And there's wood planks around them. And you just stand in there and they come to you. And they have somebody from the IOC that walks them along and brings them one at a time. So he has to do that same interview, Pete, I'm guessing 10, 12, 15 times. And every time he used the same phrase. I blew it. I blew it. It came apart. I got bad thoughts in my head. I didn't come through. I blew it. And that's the part now. I don't even care about him falling. The fact that that guy at 21 had the presence of mind and the maturity to stand there and own it. To me, that dude's a hero. I loved watching that. That's the lesson for the kids.
Jimmy was in the stands night before we record this when Alicia Liu won the gold medal for the women, and he was smiling and applauding. And even before, I want to say before all those gracious interviews he gave, he went up and hugged the winner. I want to say it was a guy from Kazakhstan who had never won a medal, any medal before. All mad props to him. Little concerned because he also posted some stuff toward the mental health angle of this on Instagram and other social media. How one was even, I sometimes think the world's a better place with, the classic foreboding thing of somebody who's depressed.
Wow.
Last thing I'll say on it, I share all your sentiments. When I first saw it, because we watch it on tape delay, I'm like, he's lost, in addition to Olympic glory, which should be paramount, $100 million? Because he was the poster child of the Olympics. He has the look. He revolutionized the skating. They didn't think the physics were there to do these quad axles or whatever they were. But I read one really interesting story because you watched him fail, and it's as if he didn't even try those jumps. His body couldn't do it. And there is something, I hate to alibi for anybody, and he did look in the mirror, but there is something to the way your brain works. He had a comfortable lead. Your brain, there's been studies with monkeys, true story. That's what this article I read said, that your brain, it slows you down because it's being cautious. It sounds like that's what happened. It slowed him down. He'd made a couple of it slowed him down so he didn't have the energy. It's an alibi, but maybe explains it.
Simone Biles,
the thing with monkeys.
Same thing, right? All of a sudden, Simone Biles, got in her head.
Yeah.
By far the greatest gymnast in the history of the sport. And I've been around women's gymnastics an awful lot, having done both the Olympics and college for many years. Simone Biles, nobody can even touch her. She's unbelievable. And she goes to the Olympics and gets the yips. And the same thing. It's your brain. And, we're talking about, mental wellness now for athletes and the pressure they're under and all of that. And maybe he was thinking $100 million. I'm supposed to win. Everybody I know is watching this. There are two bright spots to the story, Pete. One is that Malinin is only 21 years old. So he's got time now to regroup, go win a couple world championships, be a U.S. champion again, and then come back to the Olympics in 4 years. And the other bright spot is he doesn't have to go on Colbert.
This show is way too far right. We need more of Catlin, the bleeding heart liberal.
He can't even. Even if
Go
he
ahead.
ran for Congress in Texas, he can't go on Colbert. Hey, the last thing I just want to you
Yeah,
say the monkey.
yeah,
Everyone here follows the FCC and equal time provisions. On the
of
monkeys, here's
course.
what they did.
Well,
They
that's why you get
increased the
5 weeks after
reward.
Lamb was here.
They increased the reward for the monkeys in that experiment, and when it got so big, the monkeys couldn't do whatever they had them do. So there's
Ah,
legitimacy to this idea of choking. I hate using that word, if you will, being related to neurons in your brain.
yeah, yeah. I believe it. It makes sense. We've all felt it. Hey, two
Yes.
quick things before we get out of the Olympics. One was, I don't know if you saw this, but the Italians beat the U.S. men for the gold medal in the team pursuit speed skating. And when they won it, yeah, yeah, the Italian throws in the Steph Curry nighty night, and again, and that's cool, and it was funny. I love seeing it, and you want to see a little bit of that jousting at the Olympics. But
Yes.
it was what the Americans said afterwards. Let's see. Casey Dawson, one of the American skaters, said, "Hey, they're celebrating. They put the work in. Good for them. Let them celebrate." Emery Lehman, also an American skater on the team, he said, "Hey, it's better than getting two middle fingers from the Russians like we did 4 years ago." And they lost to the Russians 4 years ago in the semis, and the guy threw double bombs at him. It was great. Yeah. So good for the Italians, but good for the Americans to show a little bit. Say, hey, they beat us. They get to celebrate. That's cool. The other
Jim,
thing
could
I
you
wanted to get
imagine?
your
Hey,
go
Jim,
ahead.
real quick, could you imagine if the Americans had won, shoe was on the other foot, and we went like that?
Oh no, whole different story then.
It'd still be an
Um,
international uproar.
Yes. So, Pete, there's some dubious journalists at the Olympics, and this is really making me angry. I know you were onto the story before because of your love for tennis. So there are guys
Yes.
at the Olympics call themselves journalists in the Don Lemon School of Journalism. Apparently, that all you have to do is have an iPhone and a YouTube account, and they're trying to bait American Olympic
Isn't that
athletes
us?
into saying something. Yes, that's us too. Yes, into saying something that they shouldn't say or something controversial. Just trying to say, put it on their site and get clicks and trying to ruin these young people's lives. Listen, I don't care the political opinions of a 19-year-old snowboarder. It doesn't matter. They have no worldview. It's unfair to put them in that place. And when I was 19, I thought I knew everything too. And if you'd asked me, I would have spouted it off. And then I'd have spent the next 10 years of my life trying to outrun those comments. You saw this, Pete. They did it at the Australian Open to American tennis players. And I don't know why or how it happened, but all the American tennis players did not take the bait. So maybe they were prepped, said just stay away from it. I loved it. They all said, it's not relevant. I'm in the middle of a tournament. It's not something I want to talk about. At the Olympics, well, you saw the free skiers came out. Oh, what's going on at home makes it tough. And I don't represent all of that. I represent some parts of it. And they tied themselves in knots. And then Trump got involved. But let me get your opinion because you teach journalism at a university in the United States. Have you talked about this with your students and what's your opinion on this with these guys just walking into a press conference and derailing it, trying to get clicks?
I still try to preach to I said it the other day. I try to preach to my students. I go, look, almost all journalism, sadly, today is agenda journalism. But I will tell you, at least here in our college class, the old, mandate of fly on the wall, fact merchant, even adjectives are not a good place to go. You maybe even don't mean anything by it, but it could be misunderstood that you have a bias. So yes, there's now so many places where you might go to work. They're going to have an agenda, and fine, there you'll have to adopt it. But of course, be objective. Going back to the Australian Open, I want to say it was the questions largely were coming from reporters from The Athletic. Could you imagine the New York Times owns The Athletic sending your reporters all the way around the world to ask tennis players what they think of the ice operation in Minneapolis? It's unbelievable. Journalism is horribly woke and, of course, largely left. There is no more woke field of journalism than the sports journalists, which is amazing, incredible considering they used to be the most conservative. They didn't want baseball to have that, to have free agency. They hated Marvin Miller 50 years ago. They took up for the owners, the sports journalists. And by the way, not all, sadly, all the tennis
it's
players
sad to watch.
deferred.
I'm glad you're teaching the skulls full of mush, Pete. That that you don't have to take advantage of young people like that. It'd be the same thing of asking Marco Rubio what he thinks of the skeleton competition at the Olympics. He's simply not qualified to answer that question. So why are you asking? You're trying to get him to say something, get himself in trouble. It just doesn't make any sense. As soon as I hear it, I just cringe and I think, what are you doing, dude? Is a young athlete, you're going to get him to say something stupid because they're 19 and they have one view on things. And this guy would even pursue it when he didn't get the answer he wanted. Then he would bring up Trump's name or he'd bring up ICE. He'd say something else. Like, just stop it. So anyway,
Well, here's the beauty of it.
That makes me sick.
Here's the beauty of it, my Floridian friend. All those tennis players live in Florida. It's a red state.
Yeah, of course they do.
They weren't going to get the answer they wanted.
I will tell you, Pete, it's a purple state. It's split. Miami's blue. Even where Mar-a-Lago is blue. But then you get into the smaller towns and the college towns. You get some blue, you get some red. It's mixed. I think there's only 1.5 million more conservatives in Florida than there are liberals, and that's only happened in the last decade. All right, the last Olympic story, Pete, comes from the German publication Bild, B-I-L-D, that reported that Olympic ski jumpers are using hyaluronic acid injections to artificially enlarge their genitalia, which would allow them to wear bigger ski jumping suits. The larger surface keeps the jumpers aloft longer and leads to bigger and longer jumps. Excuse me, Alessandro Latara, a surgeon who performed over 3,000 penis enlargement procedures, said he has treated a current Olympian who has done this and is actually competing right now. Is this a clickbait? Did we get fooled on this, or is this a real thing?
We did not. So penis gate, package gate, it's a real thing. And apparently the Germans are obsessed with it. I stumbled on it when this beautiful German female reporter was doing a story on it. And there is physics to it in ski jumping that you'd get a bigger outfit, and the way the whole aerodynamics work. It's like NASCAR. If you're not cheating, you're not trying.
I thought you were going to say that ain't rubbing, that's racing. Maybe that's a whole different genre.
There's a million. Peter, I wrote a couple. There's a million double entendres that this brings up. Ski jumping is a game of inches. Where is it?
Let it ride.
Because in ski jumping, size matters.
The views expressed by the host and his guest.
And Peter, it's funny that you did that because I did the same thing. I brought up some new models, trying to put a positive spin on this for the Olympics, and I came up with a few of my own. I had the boys in the lab working on this overnight. How about this one? Chicks love the long balls. Come for the jumps, stay for the humps.
Hold on, I got to find the ding sound effect. There we go.
This one's better. Tommy will like this one. Hey, no one will chuckle at this moose knuckle. And then here's Peter. This is the one you'll take home with you. Fly like a squirrel, hung like Milton Berle. Google it, kids. All right, and Tommy, get ready. I need the Marlboro picture.
All right.
On the hill, I'm a jammer. Thanks to my new, you got it, Dick Hammer. There he is.
Way to go, Waddy.
Yeah.
Let's go Mets.
All right. Let's move on to college football. Peter, college football makes noise all the time. It's like NFL football. It's like any football in America now. Everybody can't get enough. So the college football playoff is 12 teams now, and everybody says, "Oh, give me more. Give me more. Give me the gluttony. Bring it all on." So the SEC says, "Okay, well, let's go to 16 teams because they want to get half of their conference in." The Big Ten says, "We'll go to 16 if you promise to go to 24." So next year it'll stay at 12, but the following year, 2 years, it's going to be 16 and then it might go to 24. What they're trying to do is March Madness for football. I'm okay in one sense if you get rid of all the junk non-conference games at the beginning, then it makes it better. They're getting rid of conference championship games too, which make no sense. Remember, Miami didn't even play in the ACC championship this year. Duke did. So those are meaningless. They've changed the sport. They've ruined the beginning of the season. They've ruined the conference championships. So just embrace it now. So can we do 24 teams, and can you do a March Madness in football?
But you know what's going to be the other casualty is going to be the lower tier bowl games. And you could say, oh, so what? And is what? We still have like 40 bowl games. But these are like, to the communities where you have these games, these are like business economics by background, as you know, these are like mid-sized manufacturing companies in terms of jobs and economic stimulus. They're going to go by the wayside. But the PGA's going to be doing the same thing. It's going to be nothing but majors and the $20 million tournaments. What they call those? So goodbye, John Deere Torrey Pines. In a couple of years down in San Diego, and this hurts small business. So of course it's all for money for the big and the SEC. They dictate everything, and they'll tell you that, oh, but with this money we can save women's field hockey and comply with Title IX. Will it work? Look, this year was super exciting. Maybe they lucked out because you had Mendoza and all these great stories, but I think it's overkill.
Yeah, it'll take a little getting used to. People are going to love it, and that's all they care about. And like we've said many times, whenever I can't answer a question, I just remember the great Don Ohlmeyer at NBC, who had the sign on his wall that said the answer to all of your questions is money. And you're right. And they're just going to milk it. My problem with it is that they're going to ruin it. Now, they didn't ruin basketball. They went to 65 now with the play-in game. I mean, they extended it out that far.
68, yeah.
And yet, 68 now. So now people, all right, they just kind of have fun with the first weekend, and then it gets serious. Then it's the old tournament. It's funny to remember this, Pete, but I used to work with Paul Westphal. He and I called games a lot together. One of the nicest people you're ever going to meet. And Paul passed a few years ago. Just a wonderful guy. And Paul reminded me that when he went to USC, went to Aviation High School in LA, which no longer exists, and then he was at USC. And there was a year when Westphal was at USC, and USC won every game that year except for two. The two games they lost were to UCLA. They lost to the Bruins by 1 at the Sports Arena and 2 at Pauley Pavilion. And when the season ended, UCLA was ranked number 1 in the country, undefeated, and USC was number 2 with 2 losses. And USC did not make the NCAA tournament because only teams that won their conference got in. It was a 16-team tournament. And now everybody's getting in. So I would just caution them. There can be too much, but they're gluttonous with their football now. They can't get enough. There's an unhealthy obsession in our country about football. People just want more and more and more. Heck, I went to the FCS championship game with Montana State in Nashville this year. They had 40,000 people, and it was a great game, and it went to overtime, was won on the last play on a 4th and goal. And those people were treating it like it was the Super Bowl because for them it was. So I don't think anybody
by
did
the way, a
enough football.
mid-sized city, right?
You know they could do it.
Yeah. Yeah, and
all right.
I think by the way, they want the 24 teams, but only one bid I think would go to a Power 6. So it'd be also, in a way, I guess that's
right.
good because the ones with the 2 teams that were in Power 5, they got blown out this year. Those were non-competitive.
Yeah, but it's just like the basketball tournament, though, too, Pete. There's 15 teams starting that thing, would be lucky to win one game. They don't have a chance either. So you got to figure out what's the spirit of the whole thing. Otherwise, you're just going to have the same 24 blue bloods every year, and maybe they just, trade the championship. But, I don't mind with somebody, because you wouldn't have had a Boise State beating Oklahoma if you did it like that. Remember that one of the greatest games of all time in the Fiesta Bowl. So I'd just be careful. That's why they did a 23+1, so they can throw a biscuit to a BYU or a Boise State or somebody like that getting in, or James Madison.
Yeah, and with
all right, we're gonna go ahead, Pete. Last comment here.
I'll just say you take the 16 team plus the 35, and you get your parlay off to a nice start.
Exactly. All right. We always close the show with a thing called Off the Grid. And we lost an acting titan this weekend, Robert Duval, who passed at 95. And I'm thinking, well, I love Duval, and I know you did too. And how can I get him into the show? Well, it's easy. He was in 2 sports movies. He played Max Muncy, the intrepid reporter in The Natural, and then he also played Harry Hogg in Days of Thunder, where he was in pit row for Tom Cruise. You know NASCAR? Yeah, watch it on ESPN. How's that? Watch it on ESPN. The coverage is excellent. It's a great scene. So Duval, he touched on sports, so we can do it with that. I'm going to get your comment here in a minute, Pete, but just so people remember, Duval was nominated for a bunch of Oscars, but he only won one, and that was for Tender Mercies, where he actually played a washed-up alcoholic country singer. And his caveat to doing the film was, I actually have to sing all of these songs and play guitar. Tommy, if you haven't, roll some sound.
Baby, you're the only dream I've ever had. That's country. Come on. If you'll just hold the ladder, baby, I'll climb to the top.
Yeah, that's a great song in the movie. If you'll just hold the ladder, I'll climb to the top. That's a great one. Pete, of course, we all became aware of him as Tom Hagen in The Godfather 1 and 2, Consigliere for the Corleone family. It was funny because he was an Italian, and in the movie, that little contrast kept him not in the inner circle, but one removed. And you could see it when they'd ask him to leave the room, or it's not he doesn't get an opinion on things. He was fantastic in that. Lieutenant Bill Kilgore in Apocalypse Now. We're going to show some sound of these in a second. Network, The Great Santini, Civil Action, Days of Thunder, The Natural. So when I heard he died, I didn't even know he was 95. But, most of the time when actors die, I'm like, he had a good run. But this guy, he was special. Mount Rushmore.
Mount Rushmore as an actor for sure, and Mount Rushmore as a person. I put him in that mold of our great. I know we've talked about how we don't love when athletes get in think their views on politics or other issues outside of their sport are all important. And he was well known to be one of those rare conservatives in Hollywood, but he was just a giant as a person. He was in that Jimmy Stewart, John Wayne, I could go on, mold, and a fantastic actor. I'm very sad. I didn't know he was 95 either. Just Godfather, Great Santini, just terrific work.
Yeah, what's funny, when he first went to New York to be an actor, and he was big in Westerns. He loved Westerns. But he first went to New York. He shared an apartment with Gene Hackman, and there was a guy sleeping on the kitchen floor named Dustin Hoffman, the three of those guys. So I don't know what was coming out of the faucets in there, but it seemed to work. Tommy, let's roll the sound from The Godfather.
We lose the old man. We lose our political contacts and half our strength. The other New York families might wind up supporting Sollozzo just to avoid a long, destructive war. This is almost 1946. Nobody wants bloodshed anymore. If your father dies, you make the deal, Sonny.
How about Apocalypse Now?
Apocalypse Now. Yeah. Well, one of the great lines in cinema.
I love the smell of napalm in the morning. One guy can break right, one left simultaneous. What do you think of that?
Bill, I think we gotta wait for the tide to come up.
Hey, Lance, come here. Look.
Incoming!
The tide doesn't come in for 6 hours. You want to wait here for 6 hours?
So the thing that's great about those scenes in Apocalypse Now, Pete, is that all those explosions are going off behind him, and he can't wince. He can't react to any of them, which is what made that character so great. You think he was in that movie a lot. He was only in a few scenes of that movie, but he stole it.
Napalm in the Morning is, I think, maybe Kurtz had a line that was equal to that, but I think that's the line that people most remember.
Definitely.
Of course, yeah. I don't know if Colonel Kurtz had anything as memorable as that line. And it was just it was one of the, how we've seen Saving Private Ryan, what war is like. I remember when I was younger and I saw that movie and I thought, oh my gosh, I'm so glad I was too young for Vietnam. I mean, I would have gone if I got drafted. My brothers were older than me and they just missed it by a year or two. But that showed what war was really like, and it was pretty scary. And then to have an iconic character like him, he was great in civil action. He played a lawyer. I mean, he was westerns, courtroom dramas, battlefields, Pit Row. I mentioned Days of Thunder. He was just easy to watch, and he was good friends with Billy Bob Thornton. And Billy Bob says that when he now he's in Landman, he says, I kind of play it like Duval. He said, Duval always told me, do two things on a set. Keep it simple, and at least once during the shoot, make sure the director knows who you are. I thought that was great.
In thinking about when he died, thinking about we're going to chat about it, Godfather makes any list of top 3 films, right? 1 and 2, whatever you want to put in third, Casablanca. And Godfather, just greatest movies, the actors, Khan, Pacino, Brando, but there's many big scenes that I wouldn't say he steals, but that are among the most memorable when he's sitting there with Vito and has to tell him that Sonny died. When he's sitting there with Michael, Michael, why are you always insulting me? Those are among the most memorable scenes in 2 of the greatest movies ever.
And that's what Billy Bob was talking about. I watched him in an interview, and he was saying that Duval did everything just simply and understated because, when he played Boo Radley in To Kill a Mockingbird in 1962, he didn't say a word, right? It was all facial expressions. And that was the kind of guy he was anyway. By the way, if I ever open a bar, it's going to be called Tequila Mockingbird. So I just want to copyright that before anybody sees it. All right,
another
Peter, well
role
done.
you were born to play.
We have the hazards on. Pete just did a 45-minute show with this blinker going the whole time. A rookie, first time out, first flight, and you landed it safely, Peter. Nice work. You want to come back next week?
I'd love to. Thank you for the invite to work with longtime friends, colleagues, Tommy and you, Jim. Been a blast. Let's do it again.
It's just because we just needed an expert on Penisgate. And you were the first one. Penisgate, Weitzner.
The only guy we know who has injected his penis.
Look for me. Where's the Winter Olympics in 30? Look for me there. With a big suit.
It's the internet, so we're not out of time, but we are out of topics, and I'm sure you're out of patience. Unfortunately, Pete, we did run long again, so once again, we won't have time for our super segment on the WNBA. That's 6 weeks in a row. We'll try again next week on it. For Weitzner, Catlin, Dick Hammers, and all the ski jumpers with penis enlargements, I'm Jim Watson. That's our Obstructed View. Next up on the main stage, we got to bump out with it. A little more Robert Duvall from Tender Mercies. Rest in peace, my friend. We'll see you next week.
The only dream I've ever had that's come true. Come on. If you'll just hold the ladder, baby, I'll climb to the top.